Our body consists of number of biological systems that carry out specific functions necessary for living. Reproduction is the natural process and can be known as the biological process in which the organisms produce young ones. In broader sense, it is considered as the process of origin of life and the evolution of organisms. The offsprings produced are of same kind to the parents due to the transferring of genetic material, that is DNA or RNA. Broadly, reproduction may be asexual or sexual reproduction is characterized by different features as the fusion of male gamete and female gamete takes place. Offsprings are generally different to the parents. It is very common in higher developed organisms. The process completes in long period of time. Mitosis cell division occurs after the meiosis cell division to complete the whole process, and it results in variation and evolution in organisms due to the crossing over. There are few more points about the sexual reproduction, like it is followed by both the bisexual organism as well as unisexual organisms. I think you know about the unisexual organisms and bisexual organisms. Yes, the organisms with male and female reproductive organs on the separate body, they are said to be the unisexual organisms, like us, human beings. And there are few more examples like cat, horse, sparrow. They are the unisexual animals, and there are some examples of the unisexual plants also, like coconut, papaya, maize, pumpkin, etc. And yes, the organisms with both the male and female reproductive organs in the same body, they are said to be the bisexual organisms or hermaphrodite. And some of the bisexual animals are earthworm, tapeworm, leech, starfish, etc. And there are some plants also like mustard, sunflower, daffodil, and few more examples that you can see here, which belong to the bisexual organisms. And sexual reproduction is possible only due to the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete. So that means sexual reproduction require the fertilization of the gamete. So after the short introduction of the sexual reproduction, here we will be discussing about the fertilization in animals. You can see the first point here, the definition of the fertilization, and it is common to all of the organisms, like the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete is called fertilization. And the gametes that are produced by both the plants and animals are first of all haploid in nature. Here haploid means having half set of chromosomes. And there are two types of the fertilization, that is external fertilization and internal fertilization. External fertilization that takes place in the environment, and internal fertilization, it always takes place inside the female body. So the result of the fertilization is always the zygote, that is single celled and having diploid chromosomes. The diploid means having full set of chromosomes. And then the zygote develops in an embryo, which will give rise to the young ones. Before fertilization starts, there must be the production of the male gamete and female gamete in the organism, and the process of the formation of the gamete is called gametogenesis. Sperm is the male gamete, whereas the egg cell is the female gamete. There are some other differences between the sperm and the egg cell also. So the structurally the sperm is smaller than the egg cell, and functionally sperm is active, whereas the egg cell, female gamete, is inactive. Now let's discuss about the external fertilization, and it is the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete in the environment. And this type of fertilization is mostly followed by the aquatic animals like pisces and amphibians. And there are some of the invertebrates also that follow this type of the fertilization. So for external fertilization, there must be the releasing of the sperm and ovum into the water, and the process is called spawning. There is never the 100% fertilization of the gametes produced by the organisms. After spawning, not all the gametes gets fertilized, as they need to tackle with the different environmental challenges. Some of the gametes are washed away by the water current, some of them remains unfertilized, and even the fertilized eggs, they are preyed upon by the predators. That decreases the chances of 100% fertilization. Now let's discuss about the internal fertilization. And this type of fertilization is the fusion of the gametes that takes place inside the female's body. And in contrast with the external fertilization, internal fertilization is mostly followed by the terrestrial animals like reptiles, apes and mammals. And the survival rate of the fertilized eggs is higher in internal fertilization than that for the external fertilization. Now let's discuss about the fertilization in plants. Fertilization in plants start with pollination. The pollination is the process of transferring of the pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower. Here anther is the male part and stigma is the female part in plant. There are two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. In self-pollination, the transferring of the pollen grains takes place in same or different flowers of the same plant. And in cross-pollination, the transferring of the pollen grains occurs in between the different flowers of different plants. Here one thing must be common, that is the plants taking participation in pollination must be of same species. The next point is self-pollination is possible only in bisexual plants, but cross-pollination is possible in both unisexual and bisexual plants. Among the different category of the plants, angiosperms are the most developed ones. So they follow the unique way of fertilization in them. Let's go stepwise fertilization in them. First of all, the pollen grains from the anther get attached on the stigma of the flower, and then from the multiple pollen grains, only two pollen grains make pollen tubes that moves towards the ovary. Two pollen grains from two pollen tubes enter the integument of an ovule that is known as micropyle. One of the pollen grain fuses with the ovule to form the zygote and another with the secondary nucleus to form the endosperm. And this is the reason why we call double fertilization in angiosperm. Finally, the zygote develops into embryo, ovule into seed, and ovary into fruit in all the angiosperms. After the short description about the external fertilization and internal fertilization in organisms, let's move to the reproductive part of the plant, that is flower. It is the first part that usually attracts us. And flowers have mainly four parts, that is calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. If any flower have all of these parts, then it is said to be the complete flower. And rose, pea, lemon are the flowers with all of these four parts. And some of the flowers even misses one or more of the main parts, and they are said to be the incomplete flowers. Sweet corn, gourd, squash plants are some of the examples that belong to incomplete flowers. Now let's discuss individually about the four main parts of the flower. The first one is calyx, and it is the outermost green part of the flower that protects the plants in body stage. Calyx is the name given for the collection of the sepals. The second part is corolla, and it is the colorful parts of the flower that helps in pollination, attracting the agents. And it is the name given for the collection of the petals. The third part is the androecium, that is the male part of the flower and that takes part in reproduction, and the name is given for the collection of the stamen. Stamen is the unit of androecium that consists of anther that produces pollen grains. It is also separated into the part filament and connective. And the last one is the gynoecium. It is the female part of the flower, and it also participates in reproduction, and it is the name given for the collection of the pistils or carpel. And pistil consists of stigma, style, and ovary as main part. Here we come for the last topic, that is the differences between the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction of organisms. Let me go point-wise. The offsprings produced by the sexual reproduction are genetically different, whereas the offsprings produced by the asexual reproduction are genetically similar. And the offsprings that is produced by the sexual reproduction play a role in variation and evolution that is not possible in asexual reproduction. Since there must be the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete in sexual reproduction, so there must be two opposite parents to get involved for reproduction, and there is no fusion of the gametes in asexual reproduction, so single parent can produce the offsprings. Offsprings of sexual reproduction are more resistant type, but the offsprings produced by the asexual reproduction are